Hi, I'm Eric Hurley. I'm an instructor at Western Piedmont Community College, and I'm here to teach you a little bit about concrete. Today, we're going to talk about safety, we're going to talk about the tools that we use, we're going to talk about the materials that we use, and we're going to talk about the testing that we do in order to place this. When we place concrete, placing concrete is putting it in a place where we can use it efficiently, such as footings, walls, columns, beams, or any other thing that could be used in construction. First of all, let's talk about safety. When using concrete and working around concrete, you have a lot of splash. Concrete is a chemical and can irritate skin and especially eyes. Eyewear like this is essential when you're working with concrete. If your skin is very sensitive, gloves also may be used. Concrete will dry out the skin tremendously and cause it to crack and a lot of pain. Now let's talk about some of the tools that we use in concrete. One thing that we're going to be using is a mortar hoe. This is what we're going to use to mix up our concrete in order to make a good plastic material. We're going to be using the wheelbarrow as well so that we can keep it inside so that it doesn't run out all over the place. Some of the other tools that we're going to be using, and I want to talk about these, is a slump cylinder, the rod, and the test cylinders. Generally, when we do concrete, we make 4 test cylinders. One that will be tested at 7 days, one at 14 days, one at 28 days. If any one of these fail, then we can come back with our 4th cylinder and test it. If it fails, then we may go to the job site and take a core sample so that we can test that as well. Concrete does not dry. Concrete goes through a chemical process called hydration. Hydration is when we give it a little bit of water to the limestone and it starts growing crystals. Well, in that process of growing crystals, they actually attach themselves to aggregate that is around them and holds on. Concrete consists of 4 ingredients: large aggregate or stone, small aggregate or sand, Portland cement, and water. Let's take a closer look at these. Gravel or stone is what we use for large aggregate. It is very hard in compression strength. It takes a lot of load. The more gravel that we use in concrete, the harder the concrete will become. Small aggregate, such as sand, helps fill in the voids that are around the large aggregate. Portland cement is a very fine, pulverized limestone. We take limestone and we heat it up to about 5,000 degrees. And in that process, we get rid of all of the impurities. So therefore, only thing is left is the pure limestone. We can mix it with some other items and we end up with what we call as Portland cement. The last ingredient is water. The less water we use, the stronger it will become. When we talk about mixing concrete, it's called a design mix. And in a design mix, we weigh out what we need to put in our concrete. We weigh out our stone, we weigh out our sand, we weigh out our Portland cement, and we also weigh out our water as well. Using specific gravity, we can get the mix to change. We can make it stronger, or we can make it weaker. We really don't want it weaker. We can also add air into it, called air entrained concrete, to make it lighter. What you see here, today, we're just using volume. That's not really the best way to make a design mix. But today, for what we're doing, this is the way we're going to mix it. For our particular recipe, we're going to say that it's 1, 2, 3. 1 Portland cement, 2 sand, and 3 stone to make our mix. If we tried to use all of the same size aggregate, we would have gaps, and voids in here that would have to be taken up with the concrete itself. Well, the concrete is really not all that strong. If we were to use just Portland cement, it wouldn't be strong at all. So we actually put this aggregate in there to make it strong. The cement binds the aggregate together. In order to get all of our voids as closed as we possibly can, we use different sizes of aggregate. We actually can do a test to find out what sizes that we're using, but we normally use anything from as small as 1/4 of an inch to as large as 1.5 inches. To fill up the gaps and voids around all of this aggregate, we end up putting in small aggregates such as sand to fill in the voids around it. The more aggregate that we use, the less Portland cement we have to use, making the mix cheaper and stronger. When we mix concrete, we want to mix it thoroughly so all the aggregate and the Portland cement are mixed up constantly. We first start by adding the aggregate. Then the fine aggregate. And then the Portland cement. It's very important to mix all of our ingredients dry before we add water. When mixing concrete, you need to cut through it all the way to the bottom and pull it to one side so that you get it a full mix. If it is not mixed properly, we get what is called segregation. Segregation means that all of the large gravel is separated down towards the bottom because it's heavier, and all of our lighter material will end up being at the top when we pour. Water takes up about 14 to 22% of concrete. So when we mix it in, we need to mix in the proper amount so that we don't get too much. We're going to test this in a little bit called a slump test to make sure that we've got the right amount. We're trying for about a 3-inch slump. So we want to put in a little bit of water, and then we want to mix it up, and then we're going to add the rest of the water. A slump test determines how much water we have in concrete. Shirley Ritchie is going to assist me on this, and I'm going to let her go through the test as I talk to you about it. This particular cone is what we use to perform the test with. It is 12 inches high, approximately 4 inches in diameter at the top, and 8 inches in diameter at the bottom. Once we do this, it is very important that we do not move while we're doing this test. So these two ears we stand on. We will fill it up 1/3. We're going to rod it with this using the bullet side 25 times. Then we're going to fill it up to 2/3 and rod it 25 times as well. Then we're going to cap it off and rod it another 25 times. I've added a little bit more water to our mix so that we have something to show as far as a slump. If we leave it dry at 14%, we won't have much of a slump at all. So I want you to have a little bit of a slump so that you'll see what we can get out of it. Sherilyn now has her feet on the two ears of the testing modular. Now we're going to load it with concrete. Again, we're going to load it 1/3.
1/3. See how good he is.
Okay. Now we're going to go to 2/3. We're going to cap it off, and now we're going to rod it 25 times and use the rod to screed it off the top. You don't have to go all the way to the bottom. Now, very gently, she's going to put her hands down on the handles and push down with that as she steps off. In one gentle motion, she's going to pull straight up. Now, we had quite a slump there. Let's find out how much slump we had. By turning the canister upside down and laying the rod across it, we're going to measure to the highest piece that we have here. We have about a 7-inch slump. That would not work. Way too much for us to use. That means that it has way too much water in it. What we're going to do now is we're going to go back and we're going to do one very quickly, drier, so that we can get a better slump. A 7-inch slump is way too much for using concrete. This would end up being nothing but pure weak mess. We don't want something like this. We want something that's going to be strong and something that's going to last for a long time. Okay, Sherilyn, do your thing. Wow, that looks nice. Now we're reading about 1 3/4 of a slump. That's going to be a stronger mix, but it's going to be harder to work. If we put gravel into a ditch, we would have to pull it, work it, strain, kill ourselves trying to get it into place. This is going to be a little bit harder to work, but it's going to give us a lot better strength. When we do the cylinder test, we do the same process. We fill it up to 1/3 and rod it 25 times. Once these are complete, we don't want to disturb them a whole lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to put them on a semi-level surface. I had to screed that. Somebody didn't tell me that I had to screed that. screed that off. My other one up here. We're only going to make 2, even though 4 is what we generally make. And we're going to leave them overnight. We need to put some plastic over this with a rubber band or something. We leave it on site. We don't want to touch it. Then when it's complete, what we're going to do is we're going to cut this off. We're going to take it back to our laboratory where we have a nice little room that is 100% humidity, constant 73 degrees, and we're going to leave it for 7 days. And after 7 days, we're going to test one of those. And then after that, we wait another 14 days and we test another one. At 28 days, we should be at full strength. If we're not, we have a problem.